What's up, everybody? This is Aaron with the Unnamed Horror Podcast, and I am alongside Mr. Scott Doss. I keep pointing the wrong direction that way.
Over here.
He plays Julian in The Forest Through the Trees, and man, Scott, it's good to have you on. It's an exciting time right now, is it not?
Yeah, it's great to be here. I enjoyed talking with you back in April before we ever even started shooting. So it's nice to catch up now.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. Obviously, we've seen the trailer a few times, and there's a shot in the trailer I really want to talk about. I talked about it with Jason last week, but it's the devil horn shot where you're standing there staring at the camera, and the devil horns are coming out of each side, and it looks so freaking amazing. Like, it's a great shot. And so Jason told us that scene, see if you remember it the same way. He said the scene was basically like, wasn't supposed to happen, but you were walking, and all of a sudden he just said, "Stop, stand right there," and that was the shot.
That's exactly what happened. In fact, when we got to that part and he said, "Stop," he goes, "I don't care how many times we do this, you're going to stand right here." And they came and put an X on the floor. So I always knew exactly where to stand.
So what was the shoot like? You said you told us in April, this was your first movie that you ever gotten to do. Was it everything you thought it'd be? Was it?
Yeah, it was so much fun. I absolutely loved it. And most of the scenes that I was in, well, every scene that the character is in was a night scene. And there was only one where we filmed during the day, and day for night, we, draped all the windows to make it look like night. The rest of them were all nighters. So if you were in the scene that day, then you slept all day. You got up, you went to work like at 6 p.m. and went to hair and makeup, well, they did a lot on my hair, as you can see. Went to makeup and costumes, and started shooting probably around 8 or 8:30, and we worked all night until the sun started coming up, and then they called it, and we'd go home and sleep until the next shoot. But I loved it, every single minute.
Is that something you're used to? Have you worked nights before, like in your regular job?
Yeah, I was a flight attendant for 12 years. So I worked a lot of overnight flights. And even though I'm not doing that anymore and I'm retired, I stay up all night. Like, I may sleep till 11 every morning, and then I'll stay up all night till 4 or 5 watching Netflix or Tubi or whatever's on. I'm a vampire, really. I've always preferred the night.
Unfortunately, I am too. I used to be that way because I wanted to be when I was younger. And then I met my wife, who's not a night person. Like, she usually wants to be in bed by 10 or 11.
Yeah.
And for the first little while we were together, she was fine with it. And after a while, she's like, "I want you to come to bed with me." So I got to where I went to bed like a normal person. But then I got the job I got now where I work from 5 p.m. to 3:30 a.m. So I'm up all night now too. I sleep during the day, up all night. So that wouldn't have been a big deal to me either. But I know some people said, like, I believe Marilyn said she doesn't like night shoots. So I was just what your thoughts on it were. So tell us a little bit, because it's been a while. It's like you said, it's been April. It's been 7 months ago since we last talked. Tell us, anybody that's watching, a little bit about you, like, how you got into acting and that kind of stuff.
I've been acting all my life. My first show was in high school, and went to college, majored in theater, and I've been acting on the side all my life. It's never been film. It's always been theater, because I've always had a day job in corporate America, or like I said, 12 years at the airline, and then 15 years writing advertising. But whatever city I happened to be living in at the time, I would just audition for whatever they had in town, whether it was a dinner theater, little theater, community theater, whatever you wanted to call it. So I've been acting forever. I had just never auditioned for a movie before. I had no idea how to do it.
That's kind of the way, like, I'm not an actor by any means, but that's just like, one day I just happened to see something on Facebook. Oh, there's a movie being shot in Arkansas. And I'm like, really? Yeah. Like, well, how does that happen? Didn't know it was even a thing until around 2017 or 18.
Yeah, I never would have known it either. I had just finished a show here in Little Rock, and I had gone to the theater audition for the next show and met an actor who was also auditioning, and he normally does film. So he was trying to get more theater on his resume. And he goes, "Hey, have you ever thought about auditioning for a movie? They're casting one right now." And I told him, I said, "Never done that. Don't know how." And he goes, "Well, here, it's on Facebook." So he gave me all the info, and I applied, and it was going through Julia Borkowski, her talent agency. So that's how I got in on it.
Well, obviously not having not been able to see the movie yet, I just have a feeling you did a great job because your scenes in the trailer are so and the crazy thing is I always say this when I meet people too, like you seem like such a nice man, but yet on that again, just the shots in the trailer, you look so creepy and demonic. How
That's
do you get in? How do you get into doing that? Like, how did you get into doing that when you were on film? Like, getting rid of the nice guy and then bringing the evil out.
It's always fun to play a villain, even if it's if you're playing a comic villain. It's just fun because you don't get to do that in normal life. You don't get to be mean to people or insulting or kill them or whatever you want to do and get away with it. But my first acting professor I had in college taught us, he said, one of the most important things you can do is just watch people. Because if you're in line at the post office, you're waiting at the doctor's office, wherever you are, just sit there and watch the people around you and catalog how they walk, how they talk, what they're acting like. If something happens and they go off and get in a certain mood, you just remember all those things, catalog them, and you can pull them out of your catalog and use them later when you want to try to develop a character. So that's kind of what I do. For me, the big thing is usually the voice. When I'm reading a script in my head, I'll hear what I think the character should sound like. And he rarely ever sounds like me. I don't think my voice fits most of the off the wall oddball characters I've had to play. But when I was reading Julian, it was so well written. They just did a wonderful job. Jason and I think Charlie Brady, both. They wrote that character so well that I just heard this little voice in my head of exactly how I thought he should talk. And I thought, well, I'm going to do it this way. And once I started talking like him, it was like a switch flipped. And suddenly I knew how he needed to walk. I knew how he needed to, move his head or look at people. It just sort of clicked because I guess I was pulling all those references I had built in my head of people that I had seen. And I didn't know if I was going in the right direction or not. So I kept telling Jason, I said, if this is not right, I said, pull me back, let me know. And he said, no, he goes, I keep going. So fortunately, it was what he wanted.
There's a guy, and I want to give him credit because it was a great, I think it's Lance, the obscure movie guy or something, but he did like a trailer reaction to it. And when it first was released, and that was one of the first things he said was, I don't know who the Scott Doss guy is, but he looks awesome. And his voice sounds terrifying. And it's just like listening, like I said before, Jason let me read one of the scripts. I don't know if it was the final one, but one of them. So when you were saying your dialogue in the trailer, like I could see it because I'd read it before. So I knew what you were going to say. And I was saying it along with you because I was like, first of all, that was greatly written dialogue where you're explaining what's about to happen to the girls throughout the night. But then just the way you're saying it, I stopped halfway through and was like, I can't even begin to sound like that. That just sounds like terrifying. But
yeah, it was. After I did the very first scene that I did, everyone just said, you are so creepy. And we weren't used to seeing me like that. In fact, after the first week, we had 2 or 3 weeks off and came back. And that was the first time I'd met Will Reed, the guy that edited the film. Mm-hmm. And we were sitting around the dinner table in the crew lounge there. He kept staring at me. And finally he goes, I've been editing the footage for the last 2 weeks. He goes, I thought you really talked the way you talk in the movie. And I said, no, I just made that voice up. And he goes, keep going. I want to hear it. Do others. Let me hear you do others. So that was kind of funny.
See, Will's a friend. I like Will. Will's a friend of mine. You should have watched the podcast in April and you would have known he didn't sound like that. But because he did, and I felt bad that day too, because we didn't let you talk a whole lot that day. Like I started with James and with Kelly because I knew they had to go soon. We'll be on long, and then I felt bad after a while. I'm like, I'm sorry, Scott. Let's get to you and talk to you for a while. You just sit there patiently.
Yeah. That was my first interview. I was sitting there going, please don't call on me.
Well, get ready because you're going to have a lot more. I think once this movie comes out, people are going to look at that character and go, "I want that guy in my movie." Because that, I'm
Well,
telling you, it's going to happen.
saying that. I figured they'd look at it and go, I'm going to turn that into a Halloween costume.
That may very well happen too. Who knows? Julian may be next year's hottest Halloween costume. So, what are your feeling like? Do you have butterflies? Are you excited about seeing the final? Have you seen the final cut of the movie yet? Have you gotten to see it?
I have seen the rough cut. I have not seen once they added the music and all of the visual effects and all the other things. Anything that was not on the rough cut, I have not seen.
So there's got to be excitement there.
Yep. And the rough cut looked really good. I really liked it. It moves very quickly. I think Jason said it was an hour and 50 minutes long, but it flows quickly. You would never think you're sitting there for 2 hours. So I can hardly wait to really see it now that the music and the special effects are on it.
Yeah, that's what he told us last week. When I read him last week, he said it was with credits like an hour and 51 minutes or something. Which when I read it, I think. I don't get if somebody lets me read the script, I have to read it all the way through immediately. I don't even want to wait. Yes. So I read that whole thing, and it took me like an hour and a half to read it all the way through. And I have always heard that on a script, like a page is like a minute of screen time if you time it right. So I figured it'd be close to an hour and a half, a little more. But I also knew when you're in front of a camera, you can add more stuff here and there to make it last a little bit longer. So I was kind of thinking an hour and a half to 2 hours long.
Yeah, as far as the action goes, where you're not even having dialogue, it might be one sentence, and that one sentence can last for 5 to 10 minutes just of what they're doing without saying anything. So
right. Goodness, you all right?
You got company?
Huh?
You got some company there?
Yeah, my dog ran in with somebody. Somebody opened the door to offer me some dinner, and I was like, "No, I'm busy right now." And my dog's dead, and now he's sitting here whining at the door. He's not wanting out. He's just trying to eat something.
What kind of dog is it?
Oh,
okay.
Onyx. He's one of 5. We have 5 of them in this house.
Wow.
Yeah, we have more. We have like 1, 2, 3, 6 humans and 5 dogs in this house. I mean,
that sounds like it keeps you busy.
Oh yeah. Which is why I have to come in my bedroom, and I usually lock my door. I just didn't today to do these podcasts, and that's why sometimes my podcasts get interrupted because I'm like, I'm doing a podcast. It's not even my kids normally. It's another adult going, "Hey, you get?" It's like, "Go away." Okay. I'm busy. Well, I'll tell my kids I'm going to record a podcast. Okay, Daddy, and they're usually pretty good about staying out for a little while, but yeah, the other adults don't. Man, I'm really excited about seeing it because I got tickets to. Are you going to be in Fayetteville for the first premiere?
I'll be there. I'll be in Fayetteville and Hot Springs.
Yeah, I bought tickets to both of them because I figured, the odds of me not liking it, wanting to see the second time, are pretty slim. So I was like, well, I wasn't going to buy tickets to Fayetteville until it got closer, and then like a day or two after they went on sale, Jason was like, "We're down to like 20 tickets now. So if you want to buy one, you might want to do it quick." So I was like,
"Yeah, I think it sold out in 4 days."
Yeah,
you did the right thing by buying early.
That's awesome though, because and Jason said a lot of people are probably like the actors and their families and stuff like that coming, but still to sell at 150 seats that quickly for a movie is pretty good. And then he said the other one has like 300 seats, and they're over 100 something sold right now too. So,
I wasn't really sure how many of the cast and crew are going to get to come back to Hot Springs. I had a feeling they'd probably all show up in Fayetteville because that's easier to get to. But the ones that are flying in from like LA and South Carolina and wherever they're coming from, I didn't know if they would be able to actually come back a second time or not. So I'm not sure who's going to be in Hot Springs. I know I'll be there. Marilyn will be there, and I'm assuming that some of the ones that live closer will be, but I'm not really sure.
I'm only about 45 minutes from Hot Springs. I had told Jason initially, I was like, I'm glad you didn't announce the Hot Springs date until you did, because if I had heard that there's going to be one in Fayetteville and one in Hot Springs, I would have just waited and bought the Hot Springs tickets because I live about 45 minutes from there.
Yeah.
Where Fayetteville, 2.5 hour drive. But
this way you'll get to meet more people.
Exactly. And that's why I said I'm glad you didn't, because I would have made a mistake and not bought the Fayetteville tickets, and then it would have sold out. And then they'd be like, "Oh yeah, everybody's here in Fayetteville." And I'm like,
yeah.
Because I still haven't met. literally the only people involved in the movie I have met in person at this point is Marilyn, Jason, and Will. And I think that might be it. I still haven't met Olivia. I've never met Amy Lynn. I've obviously not met you. I
Yeah.
haven't met James. So
Oh.
I've met like 3 people involved in the movie.
I'm kind of surprised you've never met James or Olivia since they've done, so many of his other films.
Well, I mean, I've never been on any sets with him or anything. I've never been on a Jason set or anything like that. I just met him. I met him in 2020 when he was shooting his first movie because he shot a scene here in the hometown I live in.
Okay.
Here in Gainesville, where I live. And I contacted him about being a PA because he said he was looking for set help, but it was during COVID. And then my wife kind of got really worried that if I was going to be on a set with a bunch of people. And so she asked me not to. And out of loyalty to her, I said, okay, I won't.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, what, you want in this interview too? But you want outside? Come on, let's go. Sorry. Being a dog dad sucks sometimes. All right, go. There we go.
All right, there he is. Well, before I got on set the first day, I'd never, met anyone in person. All the rehearsals were on Zoom. But the minute I met, the very first person I met was Brad Adams, or Brad Beavers, who plays Malthus. And second one was Jason Pitts. They came up almost at the exact same time. And after you spend 5 minutes with them, you feel like you've known them all your life. So they were both very, very friendly, easy to talk to, easy to get to know. And then James Stokes walked in, and I felt like just seeing him, I felt like I had known him forever because I'd watched him on film so many times and seen him in interviews.
Yeah, James seems like one of the nicest human beings on the planet. That's the one. Of all the people, I mean, I'm excited to meet everybody, but Amy Lynn, because I've known her for 3 years and not met her face to face yet, and James are probably the 2 people I'm most excited to meet because I've been a James Stokes fan, like you said, since he started doing Jason's movies, and he's been good in all of them that he's been. He was Jason Voorhees is one of my favorite characters. So when he did Jason and Voorhees, I was like, okay, this guy's awesome. I got to talk to him. And then his other stuff. And when I read the script, I'm like, oh, his character is going to be kick ass. So I know James is going to do a great job with that one.
Oh, he does.
So talk about you a little bit. Like, what kind of movies do you like? Are you a big movie fan? Are you just a television fan? What kind of stuff are you into?
Scary movies. I love horror movies. Always have all my life, ever since I was a little kid, and they never scared me. I've loved them, never been afraid of them, never had nightmares, but I love them. And I remember seeing Psycho when I was 5 years old. My parents were big movie watchers, and every time they went to the movie, I went with them. I guess I would throw a fit if they didn't take me. And it was probably cheaper to take me than to get a babysitter. So I went with them everywhere they went. And I remember seeing Psycho when I was 5. Loved every minute of it.
All right. So you are like my new, I don't know, soul brother or something. Because we have something in common there. Because first of all, I love Psycho. I absolutely love Psycho. But that's the same story I have. I was a little kid. No, I will say I was afraid. I was terrified. I was having nightmares. But I still loved them. I loved being scared. And Nightmare on Elm Street #4, The Dream Master, came out in '88, and I was just about to turn 5, and my parents were going to go because my dad loved the first 3 movies, so they were going to go see it, and they were going to leave me with my grandmother, and I threw a fit. I remember this. I will not forget this, apparently, because it's one of those core memories that stayed in my head. And I threw a fit, and I begged, and I pleaded, and I was a good kid. I didn't get in trouble or anything, so I was like, I don't ever get in trouble and do nothing wrong. Can I just go? So finally, they gave in, and they took me to see it. And once I left the theater that night, I was never again afraid of horror movies, but I was more enthralled with them than ever because I got to see Freddy Krueger on this, what looked like 100-foot screen to me when I was, 5 years old. And he killed a bunch of people and said a bunch of funny lines, and it was a fun time. I had a blast, and then I left the theater going, I love those movies, and I've been a fan ever. Not only just a fan, but like I said, I've never been scared of them, but I've loved them ever since. So
what's your favorite? What do you think is your, well, not necessarily your favorite, but what do you think is the scariest movie you've ever seen?
The Exorcist.
Really?
The first Exorcist. I was It was after I saw Nightmare 4. In fact, my dad was like, all right, well, since you've seen this, I'm going to show you something that will scare you. He's adamant that he's going to show me something that would scare me. So he showed me the first Exorcist, and it worked. Like, it scared me just a little bit. Not to the point of having nightmares, but there was a couple moments in the movie that creeped me out. But then I remembered, hey, I just saw Freddy on the big screen, so I'm good. This little girl's not going to hurt me. I'm fine.
Yeah.
But my favorite movie of all time is Jaws.
Oh yeah, okay.
It's a movie I've seen like probably literally 100 times. I can speak the words to the entire movie and probably not get a single one wrong. I've seen it so many times, but it never scared me. I just love the movie. I love the characters. I love the shark and the barrels in the water. Like always terrify me. Like yeah. I think the one moment that always this made me go, that's so cool, is when the pier goes out and then the pier just stops in the water and turns around. He pulls the pier down and he starts swimming out with it. And he just stops and turns, and that whole pier turns and just comes right back at that guy in the water. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Like I was enthralled with that movie, especially as a kid.
Yeah, I love the opening where the girl got dragged under and then it was moving all around the ocean.
Yeah.
That was great.
But I'm one of those people, like, I'm fairly easy to please. Like, I like a lot of movies that most people consider bad. Like,
I do too.
Yeah, if it's a quote-unquote B movie, like, I'm probably one of the few people on the planet that like Jaws 4. Like, everybody's like, oh, the movie's awful. I'm like, maybe it's not a good movie, but it entertained me, and I had fun with it.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a whole lot of shark attacks, but when there was, they were brutal. There were some pretty brutal shark attacks in that movie. There just wasn't very many of them, and that's what ticked a lot of people off was, oh, the shark goes to the Bahamas. I don't care. It's a movie. Like I don't have to have realism in all my movies. I just want to be entertained, and I thought the movie was fun. So, like,
that's me too. I like things that other people. Some people have never even seen them and wouldn't want to watch them, and I'm going, that's great. You need to check that one out.
Like, there's a movie, I don't know if you've seen it, that came out in like 2002 called Cabin Fever. And it's probably my favorite Cabin in the Woods movie. It's probably my favorite Cabin in the Woods movie. And it wasn't even a human killer. It was like a flesh-eating virus, but it was so highly entertaining, and the kids were so fun to watch in that movie. And so, another movie people don't like that I do.
Yeah, that was gory. That one was just downright disgusting, gory. So, and I heard that the idea for that came about because Eli Roth actually had picked up a virus, kind of like that, a flesh-eating virus at one time in his life, and of course he got rid of it. But he turned the idea into that movie.
Yeah, I heard that too. He said he was shaving and would peel off parts of his face while he was shaving because or whatever it was. Yeah. Which just, like, it creeps me out more than the movie ever did. That's for sure. Like, I couldn't imagine. And that's another reason why I liked it so much. Like, I could see myself being the calm, level-headed one, but I could also see myself being like those kids in that movie and just freaking out. Because you don't know what to do when that happens. Like, you don't know how you would actually react. You can say you will, but if it actually happened to you, you might not even know you might not know how to react.
If I were their age and I was in a cabin and that was happening, I would have been the one that said, don't worry about it. Get another six-pack out of the fridge. It's nothing. Don't worry. It's vacation. Have a good weekend. But I saw this movie the other night that I know it was not a favorite of the critics. I don't think they were very kind to it, but I loved every single second of it. And it was called Maxine. Have you seen it?
I have not seen Maxine. I have seen X. The prequel to it, or the first one, I think the first one called X. I've seen that one.
Yep.
I have not seen the other two though. I've not seen Maxine or the third one yet either. Pearl, I think is what it's called. I have not seen them yet. But I heard they're both. I mean, I heard some critics say they were good, and then some critics said that it was really bad. But I don't listen to critics. Like, I don't care what critics think. In fact, I'm more likely to watch a movie if a critic tells me it's bad. Let's just But if a movie critic
I like all three as well. So I thought they were all good, but Maxine, Maxine, I think, was probably my favorite. So, but they're all good.
I will definitely watch one. I really liked X. I just haven't gotten around to seeing them. I haven't watched anything new in a while, actually. Forest Through the Trees may be the first new movie I've seen. Actually, I take that back. I'm going to take my kids to see Moana 2 when it comes out in a couple of weeks. So that'll be the first newer movie I've seen in a while. And then after that, it'll be probably Forest Through the Trees before I see anything else. So. But at some point, I will watch it, though.
Do you watch a lot on cable or Netflix or Tubi or?
My wife hates horror, And so I kind of just have to watch what I can watch on my phone. So sometimes I'll use like those illegal streaming apps that like put old movies on there that you can watch. I do have a Netflix and Hulu account, but the movie, like especially horror movies on those channels or on those streaming services, sometimes leave a lot to be desired. Like a lot of the horror movies aren't very good. So I think the last Netflix horror movie I watched was when Texas Chainsaw came out. Was that 2 years ago now?
Yeah.
And I actually kind of enjoyed that one. I have to admit, I actually kind of liked it. It was better than the Leatherface one that came out in 2018 with Leatherface was like a kid or whatever, and I didn't like that one. I thought the new one from Netflix was pretty good.
But that lot of suspense in it.
Yeah, and the bus scene was great. The bus scene is probably my favorite part of the whole movie when he gets on the bus. And I'm sitting there screaming at my TV though. I'm like, "You dummies, just jump out the window! Like, open up the window!" Everybody just keeps running at him, and I'm like, "All right, well, you deserve to get hacked up with a chainsaw. If you're just going to run into it, then I'm not going to feel sorry for you."
Sometimes I even say that. I'll sit there and I'll watch, and character will start to do something and go, "Well, all the clues are there, and you see them. You deserve exactly what you're going to get."
Exactly. Yeah, and the only part I didn't like about that whole movie was the whole Laurie Strode ripoff with the girl from the first one just suddenly popping up, and I'm like, you didn't need that crap.
And she did, you know.
There was a part in the movie where she tells Leatherface, "You don't remember me, do you?" And Leatherface just gets up and walks away like, "Why am I supposed to remember you?" What is so you said you used to write advertisements. Have you ever written any scripts or ever thought about writing any scripts or anything like that?
I have written a play. You can buy it at offthewallplays.com. It is a comedy murder mystery, and it's basically it's a farce. Every character in it is straight comedy. You're not supposed to think anybody is real. They're all based on more or less cartoon characters, but they're people. It's 4 women and a man. They all work together except for one of them, and they're all at an early retirement party for their boss. And you find out in Act 1 that they're all there out of obligation. None of them like the boss. They all want to be him, and they have all tried at one time or another to kill him. And at the end of Act 1, you discover his body. So they know one of them did it. They just don't know which one. And they spend all of Act 2 and Act 3 trying to figure out which one actually succeeded and how are they going to cover it up before the cops get there. But it's called Guilty Party.
Oh, I like the title. Makes perfect sense for the movie. Sometimes people overthink titles. That's perfect. Has it been made? Has it been produced?
Yeah, it's a play. Like I said, it's a play. It's not a movie, but it's been done quite a few times. It's been done more outside the U.S. than it has in the U.S. I think it was done once at a little theater, maybe in Oklahoma, and once in North Dakota. But the majority of the performances have been in Australia. So I guess they like my humor in Australia better than Americans do.
Maybe you got that sense of humor that, maybe you should take a trip down under and maybe you'll be like a big star. So I've never gotten to ask somebody that's done a lot of plays this. What's the difference? How do you go about the differences between stage acting and then the one time you got to act on film? Is there a huge difference between them?
Yes. In preparation, there's not a lot of difference at all. But in terms of performance, film is much more intimate. You got the camera right there in your face the entire time, and you can be as soft and as the only word I can think of right now is intimate as you want to be. Whereas in theater, you're playing for the back row because the people that are sitting at the very back of the theater need to see the same expressions and hear the same sounds and feel the same feeling that the people in the front row are feeling. So it's a lot, it's broader. And I know, I don't think it's because that I've only done one film. I think I really do enjoy the film acting better?
I was just going to ask next. Yeah, which one do you find easier and more satisfying? You know, maybe that's two different answers, but which one do you find easier and which one do you find more satisfying?
I don't know if I feel more satisfied with the performance that I did in The Forest Through the Trees than I have done in some of my theater performances, and that just may be because I've done so many theater performances. There were a few that I thought, hey, that was nice, that was fine, and I have others that I thought, oh man, you know, when is the show going to be over? You know, that kind of thing. But I really enjoyed everything about the filming process and the way that the rough cut has looked, and I have nothing negative to say about that. So I think I prefer that the most, and I can't say it's easy. It's certainly not easy because you do have the thing to fall back on is that if you flub a line or you don't do it right, they can go, cut, let's do that again. You don't have that in theater. Curtain goes up and you're going to do it from beginning to end. And if the person you're on stage with misses a line, you have to figure out, what the hell am I going to do now? How do I pick up and keep on going? But it's still not, back to the film part, even if you do cut and do it over again, it's still not easy. You've still got to get that intenseness of the character in your head and know what to do and know your line. Because if they're shooting scene after scene after scene and they keep having to do it over and over and over, you don't want to be the reason they're having to do that. You want to make sure you know what you're supposed to do. So they're both mentally stressful.
I got to do a couple of plays when I was in high school. Not that I wanted to, but they were part of my class I was in, so I had to.
Yeah.
If you had told me when I was a teenager I'd be hosting a podcast, or that I've done a few, I would have done a few short films, I said you're absolutely out of your mind, because getting up on stage scared the living daylights out of me. Like, I was terrified up there. I did not want to be up there. I didn't want to say anything in front of people. Yeah. I had one where I had some lines, and I'm like, I'm going to mess up my lines. I know I am. I know them. I know what my lines are, but I'm going to get up there and just like freeze. But the one thing it did do is it made me more confident when I finished, that I was like, okay, maybe I can do stuff. And then as time went on, you know, I got to where I can host a podcast, and you know, I've acted in a couple of short films. So, you know, I do appreciate stage actors, because I don't know if stage actors get as much credit. You don't hear of stage actors becoming as famous. They don't make as much money, but they seem to have, to me, a lot harder job. Because like you said, I'm not saying film acting is easy at all, but you do have that second take that you can do if you need to. Whereas, you know, you get up there and you mess up a line, not only does the person you're acting with have to figure out how to pick it up, but you got to figure out how not to let it affect the rest of your performance, where you're just sitting there thinking, oh my God, I missed a line. What do I do now?
And like in film, when every time they yell cut, if you've got a few minutes, you can always go look at your script for what's going to happen next. Whereas in film, if you're one of the characters that never leaves the stage, you have to know what you're going to say from beginning to end, all three acts or however long the show is. And because you're not leaving stage to look at the script. So, but I admire people who can be public speakers, like on your podcast. I admire the fact that you can do this, because that's what would scare me. I'm much more confident if I'm playing a character than I am being myself. That's why I said the very first time we had our interview, and I was one of the many people that were in the little Zoom frames around, I kept thinking, please don't call on me. I don't want to say anything. I don't want to do this. You know, that's where I'm the most uncomfortable, is when I'm sitting here trying to just be me. But if I've got lines and I know I'm a character, I'm fine.
Well, I think my biggest issue doing this podcast, or I do a sports podcast too, is like knowing what, because I don't like writing stuff down. I've never liked writing stuff down, and because then I feel like I'm going to look over at it all the time, and I look like I'm not interested, or I'm not listening, and I'm just looking over at my script all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't ever write anything down. I'm just trying to go by memory, and that's why sometimes there might be a few seconds of dead air, because I'm trying to remember, what was I going to say next? What was I going to ask next? But then I figure if that's less, I don't know, that just makes you feel less like I'm being a jerk than just going, oh yeah, that's great, and then looking over at my script the whole time. So I just, but as I've gotten older, like I'm 40 now, so I feel like I'm a little bit older and a little bit more like I don't think I could do a live version of this where we're in front of a whole crowd doing it like at a
Oh,
comic.
really?
I don't know that I could do that. Like,
Yeah, well, that'd be nerve-wracking for me too, I have to admit.
Yeah, I would be pretty scared. But doing it here where it's literally just me looking at my phone and talking to you or talking to Jason or even a whole group of people, like I'm feel pretty confident in that now. I've gotten to that point. But doing it in front of a whole group of people, like there are live podcasts sometimes they do it in front of an audience. I'm like, I tip my cap to those people because I couldn't do that, I couldn't do that.
Exactly what you mean. I'd feel the same way.
Scott, this has been awesome, man. I appreciate you coming on. We
got
a couple more minutes. I just want to get your last thoughts on Forest Through the Trees and working with Jason and what's next for you. You got anything else lined up, or you looking into anything else?
I just in October I filmed a cameo in this short horror film coming out that I think Jason wrote it. Jonathan Nichols and Lauren Nichols directed it.
The Victim.
The Victim, yes. I didn't know how much they had let out, into the public yet, but it's a horror film. It looks good. I mean, the all the costumes that everyone had, the set that Carla Nemec and Stan Dark dressed, it all looks great. So I can hardly wait to see that one too. Other than that, I've just been enjoying life. I know there is one project coming up that is supposedly going to shoot in 2025, but it's still in the planning stages. So I don't want to say too much about it. I don't want to jinx that.
Right.
Once you meet Jason Pitts and all of the people that he works with, it's just a wonderful group of people. They're all very talented and they're all so easy to get to know and be friends with. They're very likable, and you really do. I know it's a cliche that everyone says, but you really do feel like you're part of a family.
Jason invited me to one of the groups he started on Facebook, like a private little family group kind of thing, about a year or two. Whenever he started the group, and I declined the request at first because I messaged him and said, "Well, I appreciate it." I'm like, I don't feel like I'm part of anything. I'm just I've never been a part of anything. I've talked to you a few times on Facebook and I interviewed you once on a podcast. That was it. And Jason graciously was like, no, you don't understand. You are a huge part of this. And just made me feel very much like I was part of everything. And every time I talk to him, he thanks me I'm like, dude, y'all are doing me a favor coming on my podcast. Like, y'all are getting me views. Like, I don't know how many people are actually seeing this to help y'all out but it's helping me out. So,
well, you're doing us a favor too, because people do watch these. So you're doing us a big favor as well. We certainly appreciate it.
I'm honored that you guys think that and you guys come on. And so without sounding like too much of a kiss up, what do I care? I don't care at this point. But no, I've gotten really lucky over the last 4 years to get to know Jason really well. And like I said, Amy Lynn and Will, and who I both consider really good friends. And then, other people I want to, if I ever get a chance to meet them, and talk to them face to face, like James and things like that. So now you're one of them because you've been on twice now. You've been awesome both times. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on here, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in Fayetteville.
Absolutely. So January 27th, although I guess it don't matter the date at this point because you can't buy tickets to them anymore. It's sold out. But
you can still buy for Hot Springs. That's February 22nd.
There you go. I was trying to think of the date. February 22nd in Hot Springs at the I think it's called the Central Theater or something like that.
Yeah, it's the Central Cabaret and Nightclub.
There we go. That's
it. It's on Central Avenue.
And I went there to see after the Voorhees 2 premiere when it debuted a couple of years ago. So it's a really nice, huge room, 300 seats, and it'll be a big deal when it happens. So if you haven't bought tickets, I think Jake said Eventbrite. You can go on Eventbrite and look up Forest Through the Trees. And $10 tickets, and then $5. I have to pay the extra $5 to get a picture with everybody because why not? So you get $10 for a ticket and $5 for a picture with the whole cast and crew. And once again, Scott, thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate it, and hope you have a great rest of your night.
Thank you. I hope you do too. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you having me on here, and Have a fun rest of your weekend.
You too, man. And if you see this guy, and you see the Forest Through the Trees trailer, don't worry. He's actually a really nice guy. He's just a good actor.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.